The Girl from Cabramatta by Sharon, Kristoffersen of Culburra Beach 2540. Narrated by Janine Penfold. Growing up in Cabramatta, a suburb on the outskirts of Sydney in the 1950s, 60s and 70s, I loved belonging to a culturally diverse community. Despite being considered a working-class area, I felt rich spiritually. Surrounded by neighbours who had left their homelands behind forever, I loved listening to their accents and being privileged to be offered food from their cultural backgrounds. No one spoke about the past, only the future. Their hopes and dreams for their children in this, our lucky country. Our home was built by my Norwegian father, a 3-bedroom white weatherboard on a 1/4-acre block. Back then, the road out the front led to Italian, Greek and Maltese market stalls towards the base of the Blue Mountains. In the other direction, the train station 2 kilometres away, and homes full of non-English speaking people starting new lives. Life was full of possibilities, hopes and happiness. Away from World War II, these hard-working immigrants had survived death and left with just the clothes on their backs and a suitcase filled with photos and mementos from their past. They put one foot in front of the other and began new lives in a country called Australia. My primary school, Our Lady of Mount Carmel, Mount Pritchard, was full of non-English speaking students. I was inspired at 6 years of age to become a Year 2 teacher because I wanted to help children learn to read, speak and write English. Non-English speaking students were grouped together with one who could speak English. I was chosen to listen to the other children read and help them as needed. The nuns told me I would make a great teacher when I grew up because I loved helping others learn. At 20, I did just that. My passion to teach continued for many years. It was the only career I wanted. And heartbreaking when ill health forced my eventual retirement in my 50s. Now, at 66, I look back and wonder how the students turned out. Have they had good lives? In my first year of teaching, 98% of students in my Year 2 class came from multicultural backgrounds. I learned sign language quickly and various forms of communicating with my students. Often up late at night, making pictorial posters with words to help educate my class. Teaching students from so many diverse backgrounds, my life was enriched as I enjoyed hearing about their lives. It was an era in Australian society that I am glad I was a part of. My own family came from overseas. Their stories inspired me to always stand on my own 2 feet, as they had done. My grandmother, Rose, arrived aged 14 from Tory Island in Ireland. She travelled alone to live with her uncle. Rose had a difficult life, but died at 93, having stood on her own 2 feet always. Rose could not read or write and spoke Gaelic. She worked as a cleaner and provided for her 4 children completely on her own after my Australian grandfather, descended from Lieutenant Colonel George Johnston, left her for another woman. Rose was pregnant with my mother Frances at the time. With 3 other children under the age of 6, Rose set to work to provide and keep the children together. She did an amazing job with no family to help her in Australia. My father was part of the Norwegian underground. He was awarded 2 long overdue bravery awards in his 90s. He was just 15 when he became part of World War II and served time in a concentration camp before being able to work on a ship after the war. It travelled to Australia and my father became an accidental immigrant, left behind when the ship sailed back to Norway. My father met my Australian mother who worked in immigration at Garden Island. They married, had 3 children, then divorced 25 years later. My father used to build huge cabin cruiser boats in our backyard, all by himself, while others dealt with the horrors of World War II by drinking away their memories. My father hammered and welded steel boats late into the night after working his day job. Dad also had no relatives in Australia. My grandmother adored him. They had a connection. My grandmother often said she felt all alone in the world. But with my father, they shared lives lived in other countries and cultures before coming to Australia. My father has been remarried for 50 years, and I learnt early in life that standing on my own feet was the only way forward. Now, homeless at 66, I have spent the past 11 years living wherever I could find a place to stay. From sleeping in my station wagon in the Nullarbor Desert, in a sleeping bag, on top of boxes which represented the remainders of my once successful career in life, to staying in a garage converted to a granny flat, to many other forms of accommodation, including sleeping on sofas in other people's homes, caravan parks, numerous short-term stays where owners needed to suddenly sell up or put their family in instead. I am using my life experiences as a survivor of domestic violence to write a book to help others who suddenly have nothing due to financially controlling economic abuse from partners who take everything and feel no remorse. Urged by numerous victims of crime counsellors and social workers, my book will hopefully help save others before everything they ever worked for is stolen from them. My resilient grandmother taught me how to be independent and strong if I found myself all alone in the world. And no one understands except those who have lived through it and survived. Domestic violence in my second marriage took my material possessions away, but never my spirit and determination to keep going no matter what. I learnt early in life from my culturally diverse neighbourhood and family that survival is always possible. The end.